Well, ladies and gentlemen, with the close of the Xbox Games Showcase, we now wrap up Summer Games Fest. And in regards to Xbox, I have to say, it was better than the worst that it could have possibly been, right? And just saying, your boy was right. I said there would be no Elder Scrolls 6 at this showcase, and I was right. But do be prepared, because we're going to be seeing the exact same conversations this time next year. And next year, I really am going to be torn 50-50 on it. I'm going to be honest. That is a tough one to call. But for the most part, this year, I wasn't expecting it. Still think it's going to be a 2027 release, personally, but for the same exact reasons that we discussed this year, I could just re-release the video I made, and they'll all probably apply in the exact same way. But for now, if I had to be honest, I personally would give this Xbox Showcase probably a solid 9 out of 10. I thought it was really great. There was a lot of diversity in everything that was shown off at this showcase. You had platformers, you had RPGs, open world games, you had a couple anime games, some co-ops. It really did have a lot of variety for many different players, but I think the major announcements were really front-loaded to the beginning of the show. So as it went on, you just sort of had this drip of, all right, is the next game going to be something really exciting? And for a lot of people, it probably ended up being pretty hit or miss. But if I'm judging it solely on what was there, not criticizing it for what wasn't there, I would say probably a 9 out of 10 for me personally, especially with Clockwork Revolution stealing the whole show, which we're going to dive into, but some massive missed opportunities as far as what we were expecting to see from Xbox. I mean, Contraband has been crickets since 2021. Still nothing from Rare's new title, Everwild. We're still completely missing State of Decay 3 or Project Kestrel coming from ZeniMax Online, which that one makes a little bit more sense. It takes a long time to build an MMO, and even for something like Everwild, Rare can buy themselves time because they do have massive amounts of success from Sea of Thieves, and that's still getting new players and engagement and making money. So they have an excuse to take their time when it comes to their next big project. But something like Contraband or State of Decay or Replaced, those are big question marks. And I was left scratching my head going, are they still in development? Are they canceled? Are we going to get something this year, next year, maybe Gamescom? What's happening with any of these? And it's just a big mystery, a big red flag for some of these titles. I'm normally not the type of person who hits the panic button. I like to just let the developers work on what they're working on. If they didn't show it, probably because it's not ready to be shown. But I'll say, especially for something like Contraband, where it's been completely silent since, I really have to wonder, is that studio canceled? What is Avalanche doing, and when are we going to hear more about it? No mention of Starfield DLC either, which a lot of fans are thinking that Bethesda is just done with the game. I don't personally believe that's the case. Maybe there's an opportunity that we see a little bit more Starfield and its DLC at an event like Gamescom, but I do genuinely believe that Bethesda has one more DLC planned for Starfield, and then that will genuinely be it for the game. I think that this is going to be a larger expansion for the game that is in the works that will come alongside a PlayStation 5 announcement, which might be why it wasn't revealed at the Xbox Game Showcase specifically. And this will be a larger expansion similar to what we get with a Shivering Isles or a Dragonborn or a Far Harbor, so on and so forth. And then Elder Scrolls will be the primary and only focus for the most part at Bethesda. The open of the show started really strong with the Outer Worlds 2. We know we were going to be getting into the deep dive later on at the end of the showcase, but the trailer started off really positively for me. A lot of what I'm hoping to see from any sequel is being shown off here, and they also discussed in more detail at the end in the post show. But they had Grounded and Pentiment release. Grounded was a surprise hit, but a hit nonetheless. We know that Avowed is scheduled for this year, and we also have the Outer Worlds 2. But somehow during this time, Obsidian is able to find the means to work on a sequel for Grounded, which is releasing in early access in a month. They have seemed to have figured out something the rest of the industry cannot do, and it is baffling to me that Obsidian is able to have this level of output. It's absolutely insane, and they're still going strong. Grounded 2 continuing the story that they presented in Grounded 1 with a really cool new trailer, some awesome enemies, and exactly what you might expect from the original experience, but expanded on in the way that sequels should be. Very similar situation for the Outer Worlds 2, which does deserve a whole video in and of itself, but just a SparkNotes version here that will dive into some of the massive improvements that they're making. First and foremost, they are visually looks great, right? It looks really good game. I thought the original Outer Worlds looked good as well, but there's some tweaks and improvements. It looks a little bit cleaner, a little bit sharper, at least to me, with this new footage. They're improving the skills system. They're expanding the dialogue, the choice and consequence, and the world reactivity. They are improving, but not ripping apart, the traits and the flaws system. They have skills that matter both inside and outside of combat. So they demonstrated in their follow-up showcase that you can use strength or technical skills in order to get through a door. And then they have custom animations built out for both, which I absolutely love. When a game doesn't just say, oh, you invested in strength, well, now you could hit things a little bit harder. How can I use that skill in other more creative ways? And of course, it applies to dialogue, it applies to environmental navigation, and then you also do get the buffs to your combat benefits. So beautifully implemented with the skill system there, and I'm very happy to see the game going in that direction. They showed off unique weapons, each with creative designs and unique effects, like one that levels up the more you use it, and it shoots confetti out every single time it does, so I love the creativity there. Basically, every single thing that I've been asking from a Bethesda game is being introduced in some form or improved upon with the Outer Worlds 2. So I'm excited. I'm in a good mood. Outer Worlds 2 looks great. Of course, a lot of that information came from the deep dive, but I'm feeling hyped. Even Outer Worlds 2 was met with a bit of disappointing news. After the showcase, it was available for pre-order, and fans noticed that the price is going to be set at $80 US for the base edition, $100 if you would like the premium edition of the game, which comes with 3-day early access. Now, I know a lot of folks are just going to say, well, I'll play it on Game Pass. It's not a really big deal. I have been pretty vocal about my skepticism about the longevity of Game Pass, because at some point the platform has to plateau in terms of user growth, and when it does, there's one of three things that happens. The price is going to increase, which decreases the overall value that Game Pass provides to a lot of folks. They're going to start cutting features, or they're going to start doing some other monetization practices like adding ads into the games in order to make up some of that difference. So just skeptical about what that future is, but I know at least for the time being, it is a really good value. High on Life 2 is a massive surprise that I was never expecting, and they're expanding on with a new bow, with new weapons. They have some originals that are returning as well, and I was very curious if we would ever see more from High on Life, given everything that happened with Justin Roiland, but it seems as though they're still continuing on, and it had great humor. If you like that Rick and Morty style of comedy, we're going to absolutely be getting a lot more with High on Life 2 from a wider variety of weapons that I'm eager to see. And Rick and Morty has been doing fine since the departure of Justin Roiland, so I have full confidence that the team of writers can make this one sing as well. And then Resonance, which in its initial reveal was really throwing myself and the folks in chat for a loop. Had no idea what to expect from this one, as they had a lot of Roman imagery, and we were joking around with maybe it's a Rise Son of Rome sequel, but this would be Rise Daughter of Rome, as it's centered around a female protagonist. But it's actually Resonance from A Plague Tale, the world of A Plague Tale, which is super cool indeed to be going to a whole different part of this universe. I love that Focus is willing to dance around in different areas of the world and explore it further, because they have such a unique environment that they've been able to build up, and a unique lore that's behind all of these games. And so I'm very excited at the opportunity to delve into all different types of regions to see how different parts of the world experienced some of the events that take place in the world of A Plague Tale. This one is coming to Xbox, PlayStation 5, and PC in 2026. A lot of 2026 titles actually in the showcase, so we're going to have a very stacked year when it comes to in 2026. Then they showed off the Xbox handheld. Now this one was interesting just because it really isn't doing anything differently than what we already have access to with the ROG, and I actually didn't know this while we were streaming, but That Blue Number, she was the one who explained to me that all of this was possible, being able to unify your library across Xbox, across Steam, Epic, GOG, so on and so forth. However, the major difference is Xbox is putting a massive emphasis on making sure that all of your Xbox library is accessible to all platforms, which is a very good move for Xbox to do. Both of these new handhelds look really, really great. Of course, they are the Xbox ROG, right? So you have that Xbox and ROG branding. And I think ultimately, if you're looking to get into a handheld, this is probably one of the more accessible areas to do it, just because they're going to have very strong marketing behind these products. And of course, with the Xbox brand, whether it's the face buttons or just simply having that Xbox button, I think will incentivize a lot of people to hop into the handheld market if they haven't already. Curious to see what Steam and Valve is going to do in order to compete with this, especially because, you know, you can access your Steam games right from these devices. But ultimately, great move for Xbox, great move for handheld gamers, and I'm excited to see how much further they push into this direction in the idea, the concept behind being able to play anywhere. So we're still rolling along with a really strong start, and of course, during this announcement, they did something that I thought was really strange, which was just sort of shoved Silksong in there. I thought maybe we'd get a little bit more. I guess not, because we saw some new stuff between the Nintendo Switch Showcase and Summer Games Fest, so I guess they just don't really have much more to show off. But Silksong is a pretty hyped title for a lot of folks, so to just relegate it to the handheld announcement and say, yeah, it's also coming out this year and it'll be available day one, that seemed a bit strange to me behind such a highly anticipated title. But maybe we all know it's coming and the audience that is excited for that game already is aware of it. It was just really, really strange to me. But if you're looking forward to Silksong, it's still coming this year. So we keep the momentum going with Blood of the Dawnwalker, coming from ex-CD Projekt Red developers. This is one that I'm closely keeping my eye on, but I'm also a little bit nervous about. It has this time mechanic that you have 30 days in order to save your family, but time only progresses when you complete certain quests. So there's this puzzle element to the game, I suppose. I'm just curious how the combat is going to tie into that and completing quests until we kind of get a bit of a deeper dive. I'm going to be looking at this one a bit more curiously, optimistically, sure, but with curiosity more than anything else. There's tons of choice and consequence here. You have tons of different NPCs that you can meet, align with. Of course, you can kill many of them if you so choose, and you'll be balancing between what you do during the day and what you do at night as different NPCs and different opportunities make themselves available to you. So plenty of replayability for sure to hop into this one. The music also very reminiscent of The Witcher, which is massive praise for any game because that soundtrack is just phenomenal. And this is yet another title that's listed as coming in 2026, so we got some time before this one as well. But ultimately, as far as the combat goes and the gameplay, the aesthetics looks really, really cool, and I'm absolutely excited to see more of what this team has to offer. This was followed up by Super Meat Boy 3D. There was this Mario pipe opening in the beginning. I was very confused as to what we were seeing, but then they're taking Super Meat Boy to a 3D world. Now, I've never played a Super Meat Boy game before, but I was actually getting some Pac-Man World vibes from this. Maybe that's just because it's in a 3D space, but that's a good sign for me. If I were to try out a Super Meat Boy game, it would probably be this one. It had some beautiful art style. It was bloody as you would expect from a Super Meat Boy game. Some very intriguing looking puzzle and platforming mechanics that looked like a lot of fun to try to traverse and definitely challenging. So excited to see more of Super Meat Boy. I could see this one being very pleasing to existing fans of the franchise, but I don't ultimately have too much to say here. And that goes for the next game as well, which was Ninja Gaiden 4. I've not played it, but it is coming out in October, on October 21st to Xbox, PC, and PlayStation. So very exciting for Ninja Gaiden fans. This next one was pretty big for me, just because I wanted to know when exactly we could expect it. And it's very soon, September 4th, and that's for Indiana Jones and the Order of Giants DLC. Now, showing DLC for any game is a bit difficult just because you sort of already know what to expect, especially for a game that's as story-driven as Indiana Jones is, but it was such a phenomenal game. They show off a brand new trailer. It's heavily story-driven. Machine Games, I think, has solidified themselves as some of the best storytellers in the industry right now because they're killing it. Between the Wolfenstein games and, of course, Indiana Jones and The Great Circle, you present more Indiana Jones with a story-focused DLC, and I'm on board. You don't have to say any more. I'm already interested. I'm there on day one. If you haven't checked out Indiana Jones and the Great Circle, do yourself a favor. If you need a story-driven, really great game, that's definitely one you should be checking out. The DLC comes out on September 4th, so not too long of a wait there either, which is very exciting. At this point in the showcase, we're doing pretty good. We're having a fun time. A lot of exciting reveals. Some not for me, but definitely I know that there's going to be others excited about, and it really put my head through a loop when the next one was introduced, coming from Game Freak, who makes the Pokemon games, and they have a Souls-like title that's being released called Beast of Reincarnation. Now, I don't know about many of you, but I personally am getting a little bit tired of Souls-like games, and honestly, outside of it being from Game Freak, which is still definitely a head-scratcher, this didn't really stand out to me all that much. But it is releasing on 2026 on all platforms. There was some cool mechanics where the player was able to manipulate and bounce around and zip around the environment to do some cool attacks from the sky and from the air. But ultimately, not really one that I think I'll be taking too much of a closer look at. And this is where the absolute highlight of the show comes into play. And that is with Clockwork Revolution. And damn, did I not? I don't know what I was expecting. It was one of my more anticipated games, but inXile absolutely cooked with Clockwork Revolution. The only disappointing thing is at the end of everything they showed off, they said that the release date was it's ready when it's ready. I don't know if that means later in 2026. More likely it means sometime in 2027. But wow, did this blow away every expectation, and everything I have seen online in regards to discussion about this game has been nothing but positive. It was my personal highlight of the entire show, and it's all I can think about anymore at this point. You have the full gameplay reveal coming out swinging with damn good looking visuals. Of course, that steampunk setting is completely encapsulating really great vocal performances as well, and that's backed by what seems like stellar writing. It nailed humor, it nailed a little bit of dark comedy, it had some really gritty moments in the game as well that we'll talk about. But you just start off highlighting the tease of RPG mechanics that are going to be in the game. You get a look at backgrounds and traits. There's 9 different backgrounds that it seems like you can pick from. You see that there's an attribute system, and you distribute points like a classic Fallout title for things like agility or strength or charisma. There's full character customization because you do get to see your player character during cutscenes. They are a voice protagonist. There's also dialogue options in the game. You have weapon customization. We see them changing everything from the barrel of the gun to the stock to the magazine. There's creative weapons with different ammo types, such as incendiary bullets, it looks like. There's grenades or bombs that shock enemies or lift them up in the air. And this is all laced together with dark humor that's not this bright Disney-fied world. At one point, the protagonist just double taps someone in the head nonchalantly. And the wildest part is all of this is revealed. All of these cool features that are, I'm sold already. And then they remind everybody watching that, yeah, we have some time travel choice and consequence mechanics in this game as well, and time control mechanics that not only influence how you traverse different levels, but they're also used during combat to do things. At one point, they just age one of the enemies out of existence. Holy smokes, inXile is going to be one of the studios everybody is going to want to keep their eyes on. I think this could easily be one of the largest releases coming from Xbox in if it happens to be 2026 or even 2027, and that's lining up with a game like The Elder Scrolls, which is when we were speculating that might be arriving. So massive hats off to inXile Entertainment for that showing. You guys absolutely nailed it, and I cannot wait to see more. There's already a bunch of details that are out on the web. I might consider doing sort of a deep dive into some of those, because just simply, wow, this is not one, ladies and gentlemen, that you're going to want to miss. So at this point, I'm floored. Okay, Xbox, you didn't need to show anything else off. You could have just stopped there and said, hey, this is what we got and we're looking forward to seeing, because you have some 2026 titles, you have some that are planned out further into the future. I'm feeling good, I'm hyped, but they capstone that with Bloober Team's next title, Chronos New Dawn. Now, this is one that we've already seen a few times, but Bloober Team continues to impress with the dark and gritty and visceral world that is Chronos New Dawn. Some solid combat mechanics. Looks like there's a little bit of jankiness to it. For example, there's a shot in there where they're shooting this enemy with really large looking bullets, and there's just zero impact effects whatsoever of these shots hitting the enemy. Very minor, but they do have time before that fall 2025 release date, so I'm really hoping that a cool story is able to piece all of this together, because Bloober is always a studio that I see their games come out, I'm impressed by them, but they never seem to have that widespread critical appeal or critical acclaim that I think they do deserve. And I'm hoping that Chronos New Dawn can be that one, because it's a studio that's not afraid to consistently put out new IP after new IP in an industry, in an age where a lot of studios are deciding to just stick with sequels or remakes or remasters, because they are the much safer option. So whatever Bloober is doing, I hope to support that, and I hope this game really does stand out for them as a big success going forward, because it does look pretty impressive. This was the moment, though, after Chronos New Dawn, that things started to drip out a little more. And when I see a lot of folks rating this showcase as a B or even a C, it's at this moment where I think that really starts to set in, because it seems like Xbox did a fantastic job at front loading everything that you'd want to see, and then they really didn't know what to do with the latter half of the showcase, or they really just thought their finale was something truly special. Now, I say that with a couple caveats, because there really was a little bit of something for everybody in this section, but distinctively not the hard hitters like a Clockwork Revolution in the latter half of the showcase. So they dive into Elder Scrolls Online with probably what I think is the worst showing of that game that I have ever seen. When you're taking these beautiful cinematics, of course, they're cinematic trailers, but incredibly cool, very, very neat to see, and enough so that I want to see an animated show in the style of those. Instead, here we get a 1959 song, Turn, 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 while showing off puppet shows and Akaji playing volleyball, and it's just so massively not Elder Scrolls. It felt incredibly out of place. It's the epitome of, this was something the marketing team got their hands on and said, hey, how can we be creative and fun with this? Meanwhile, you're working with a franchise that has some of the best fantasy music in the fantasy genre, so this one really took me out of all of it. And on top of that, they had some text saying a world-changing event that you could take part in, and by this point, I'm so far removed that now I'm not necessarily the target audience for Elder Scrolls Online. I've tried it. MMOs really aren't my jam as much as I would like to hop into something like Elder Scrolls Online, because it looks like a cool experience. This was not the type of trailer that was going to get me to want to check out the game. But then again, maybe I'm just not the target audience for it. So, I don't know. It was weird. Wasn't a great look for the game, in my opinion. But hey, maybe it appealed to some folks out there because it looked really inviting to hop in and just sort of live in this cool, zany fantasy world. not how I associate Elder Scrolls. Don't Nod was up next with Aphelion. I have a massive soft spot for Don't Nod, especially after Jusant, which I did a review for, and absolutely loved that game. Now, Aphelion is a sci-fi title where you're trying to find someone on this frozen winter planet. It almost had this Uncharted-like traversal that was going on, and I have just a really big soft spot for these types of stories and these types of games. It's coming in 2026 to all platforms, and I love the backdrop of this massive spaceship wreckage that you're traversing. So I am very excited to see what this team has to offer. If you haven't done so already, check out my review of Jusant and consider checking out the game yourself, because it was really, really fun to play. I don't think anybody had any idea what to expect from this next one. It was called There Are No Ghosts at the Grand. Initially, it looked kind of like a house builder, maybe like a house flipper, or even like a power washer simulator, right? Those types of simulation games. You get in, you repair the house, you feel good about it, you talk to some NPCs, and then it started diving into some Cthulhu and puzzle solving, some Alice in Wonderland psychological elements that completely and utterly threw me for a loop. And as I was watching this, just in real time, my brain was turning like, okay, that's what this is. Oh, and I just slowly got myself more and more immersed in whatever the heck this title was, and the mystery that's here. It's intriguing. It has a lot of drama, it looks like, some psychological twists to it. So I'm fully on board. Whatever they are trying to do, I'm down with it, and I'm looking forward to There Are No Ghosts at the Grand. There was a lot going on here. At one point, you're driving a boat, so okay, is there this semi-open world element? There's another point where they were doing like this Ghostbusters segment. It was really, really quite wild. But I understand how not everybody would be into this type of game. So again, you could sort of see where you're probably losing some folks, because following this game was Age of Mythology Retold, which I thought that I was part of kind of a small group that actually really loves Age of Mythology. It's getting a brand new Pantheon introduced, which is absolutely bonkers that that's happening in 2025, but I guess the game is in fact popular enough. But again, an RTS title that is really not necessarily going to appeal to absolutely everybody. And it goes even further when we had Mudang 2 Hearts. Mudang helped to pick up the pace with its action focus. It looked almost like a combination of Metal Gear meets Resident Evil or something. A stealth action third-person over-the-shoulder shooter. There's two protagonists that sort of looks like this Mary Jane and Spider-Man situation from Spider-Man PS4 going on. But it had these meta-human boss fights in the gameplay mixed with some pretty visceral takedowns as well. Now, the interesting thing about this game, which didn't necessarily show off in the trailer, is that there's a huge emphasis on the way that the AI is handled. In fact, they specifically mentioned that there's going to be inspired strategies by the real Korean military. They say how the AI is going to develop search parties. They're going to flank and try to outmaneuver you in combat. There's going to be different behaviors based on the roles of the enemies. So there's going to be saboteurs or heavily armored troops, and they will each behave differently from one another. There's lethal and non-lethal routes that you can take part in. So honestly, this is one that I would really take a close look at if you're into sort of the stealth and maybe even some immersive sim style games, because definitely sounds intriguing. Don't think it showed as well as it could have, but I will say definitely keep an eye on Mudang 2 Hearts, because I think it will probably surprise a lot of people. Next up was Planet of Lana 2, another game that I have a very big soft spot for. I actually believe I have the entire game streamed on the channel. You can check that out if you're interested, and I loved Planet of Lana. I thought it was definitely a hidden gem of the year. Its art style was beautiful, its music was beautiful, the world that it takes place in was beautiful, with some really cool lore and environmental storytelling that takes place throughout. So they had built this pretty expansive world, and just like a situation with The Outer Worlds 2, Planet of Lana 2 looks to be taking everything they did in the original game and expanding on it for this sequel, which is great to see, because again, The world was highly intriguing. If you like these types of 2D platformer games like a Limbo, then you'll definitely find something that you'll enjoy with Planet of Lana. Very excited for the sequel because it continues not only building out that world, but also continues that beautiful art style and more of the phenomenal music that was a part of that game. And if you were not tired at this point because of a few surprises that were thrown in, I really think it starts droning on. So again, when people say it's a B, I get why, because after this we take a look at Fallout 76, which we've already seen quite a bit of. There wasn't necessarily any big new massive announcements. I'm happy that that game has turned itself around, but ultimately for a lot of folks, they tried it wasn't for them, and they're leaving it as is. And nothing necessarily here with a fishing update that they focused on, I think, is going to drive new players to try to check it out, even though there's a lot that that game has to offer at this point in time. And this was followed immediately by Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 3+4. I'm excited that these titles are getting brought to modern consoles. I know that it means a lot to people, the Tony Hawk Pro Skater series. Next up was At Fate's End. It's by the team who made Spiritfarer. It's a 2D title, and it uses what looks like a bit of a card system. That's a pretty unique system for this type of game, and that comes out in 2026. And it's just back to back to back with slow hitting game. Persona 4 Revival, Gears of War 1, Sea of Thieves. I'm starting to rub my eyes a bit. I'm checking my watch. I don't have a watch on. I'm looking for something to latch on to, whether it was the Contraband or the Everwild or the ZeniMax MMO. I'm looking for any of these titles to just really light a spark under my seat. Nothing's really hitting until Invincible comes onto screen, which again, maybe was going to appeal to a lot of people until it turned out to be a 2D fighter. They started off this Invincible with Omni-Man hurling him across this big city. They're chucking him up buildings. They're slamming him into the ground. You see the big vista of the city that they're in, and it looks really damn cool. And I'm thinking, oh, hell yeah. Are we getting this open world Invincible game? And we're going to have Omni-Man and destructible buildings, and we're going to be flying across doing all these moves. A Superman game that we've never been able to get, but a little bit darker, a little bit grittier as Invincible is. Then it reveals itself to be a 2D fighting game with a 3v3 tag team system. Now, I'm not saying that this is a bad move. In fact, I'm actually pretty excited for a fighting game set in the Invincible universe. I think it's an incredible matchup, but they really had me going in the first half of this trailer. So you can see how initially lit up and then just sort of sit back down and go, okay, all right, I see what we're getting ourselves into. Again, I'm very intrigued. I don't want to speak too negatively about it because I don't have anything negative to say about a fighting game taking place in the Invincible universe. It's a great matchup, and it's something that I know a lot of people were asking for, so I'm excited to get to try it out. But damn, okay, you get me excited. It's not really landing. We're still missing any of these big announcements in the second half of the show. Final Fantasy gets announced that it's coming to Xbox. Very cool. Some more Final Fantasy games. Now we have Double Fine, which again, for me, it's always a type of studio that I look at and I see cool games, but for some reason, they've never really stuck well with me. I've never looked at it and been like, I really need to play this Double Fine game. I don't know why. I will say this new introduction of Keeper looks the most interesting to me. It looks more in line with something I would probably really enjoy playing. Keeper, you're playing as this lighthouse and you're exploring environments and traveling around the world. Definitely looks like a Double Fine game. So I'm interested. I love the animation. I love the art style that's here. I love the concept of it because it's definitely something different, which is what Double Fine excels at. Curious to see more of Keeper, and I know that Double Fine has a lot of people who really love this studio's games, and I'm thinking, okay, now we're finally going to dive into these announcements that we're hoping for. But that's the end of the showcase. Phil Spencer walks out on stage and talks about how excited he is for all these upcoming projects and all the announcements, and then says they have one more thing, and they end the show with Call of Duty Black Ops 7. Now, Call of Duty, ladies and gentlemen, is something I just really can't get excited about. I have fun jumping into Call of Duty from time to time, but honestly, I'm already tired of it. I'm tired of all of the AI art that's used in the game that I just really don't want to support. They're bringing back round-based zombies, which on paper sounds cool, but honestly, it's so convoluted and complex that I guess I'm just too old for zombies at this point, because even though you can just go in and shoot and survive as long as possible, it's so overly complex, I don't want to even bother. And after one round of the game, of us playing, I was just done. I had my fill for about the next month or 2 or 3. They're going into this psychological, almost horror-based. It seems like the central theme is around fear, which definitely is an interesting concept to approach. They had this mind-bending Inception reality that was going on with the gameplay trailer. So while the campaign, I think, will probably stand out, Treyarch is very good at writing their campaigns. Ultimately, as far as Call of Duty goes to end the show, really lackluster way to do it, in my honest opinion, especially because it just showed conceptually. We really didn't get a good look at any of the actual mechanics in the game. It confirmed things that people were already speculating about, that it is taking place in the future, that zombies was coming back to nobody's surprise. And so I guess for Call of Duty fans, this is a pretty big win, especially fans of the Black Ops franchise in particular. So overall, again, I thought there was a little bit of something for everybody. I would personally give it an A if I had to. I'd give it about a 9 out of 10 showcase, because there's definitely a lot to look forward to in the near future. And like I said, I don't judge it based on what wasn't there. But as far as the pacing goes, I think we needed a couple more hard hitters in the second half of the presentation, at least in my opinion, to really keep that energy and that excitement going. And honestly, I wouldn't have minded if there was just a bit more gameplay that was featured as well, or just some time where the developers got to speak on some of these games more. I know that's not really how a lot of these showcases run. It's usually just game, an exciting announcement as quick as possible. But I don't think it's such a bad thing if they slow down for a little bit, especially with something they know is going to be bigger. Clockwork Revolution, though, whew. But let me know your thoughts about the showcase down below. I'm happy to hear what you guys have to say. If you're into all things Xbox and these types of showcases, gaming news, RPGs, consider sticking around for more. And thank you, as always. I hope to see you all next time. So long, everybody.